elderly black woman, brutally beaten by cops, makes a shocking call to her Delta Force son. Mabel Johnson stood in the heart of the square, the sun filtering through the thick, green canopy of trees, casting flickering shadows. Her silver hair glinted as she raised her hands, her voice piercing the air. "We are here for justice!" The crowd moved with her, a wave of hope, determination, and love for their community. But then it happened. The sound of crackling radios and heavy boots marching in sync. Chaos erupted. With a sudden rush, officers charged. Mabel's heart pounded, adrenaline coursing through her veins. She had seen too much in her 70 years to back down now. But just as she felt that familiar fire ignite within her, the first blow struck. It was swift, brutal. A fist collided with her jaw, sending a shockwave through her body. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Eyes widening in disbelief. She crumpled to the ground, shock coursing through her like ice water. In that moment of agony, with blood dribbling from her lips and stars dancing in her vision, she fumbled for her phone. A single name bubbled to the surface of her mind. Marcus. Her son, the Delta Force operative she hadn't spoken to in years. Would he answer? Would he even care after all this time? Marcus. She breathed, her voice cracking like porcelain. Help me. As her call connected, she felt her spirit soar and plummet at the same time. Half a world away, Marcus was immersed in a world of shadows and duty. His orders didn't prepare him for the echo of his mother's voice, fraught with pain and fear. The guilt hit him like a sledgehammer. He hadn't returned home in years, too wrapped up in his military life. God, now he felt the urge to protect, to fight. He shot out of his seat, urgency surging through his veins. Returning to their small town was like stepping into a forgotten dream. The smell of rain-soaked earth and the sound of rustling leaves brought him back to a childhood he had distanced himself from. The first sight of the town square shattered him, echoing with the cries for justice, mingled with the clatter of police boots. This was more than just his mother's ordeal. It was a wound cut deep into his community's heart. But as Marcus dug deeper, he uncovered a tangled web, revealing corruption that tainted the very ground he walked on. Rumours flowed like the river nearby, whispers of secrets Mabel had harboured, secrets that could either heal their rift or shatter it further. Could he face the truth? Sifting through layers of betrayal and heartache, they became reluctant allies. Bound together by blood, but haunted by unspoken truths. As they planned their fight, tension. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube removed their subscriptions without any notice. Take a quick look at the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I don't want you to miss any exclusive content that's coming up. And while you're here, hit that powerful like button. It helps me a lot with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, from which city are you watching? I love getting to know every incredible person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's interact. As Marcus and Mabel moved through the clamour, their voices barely made it over the frenzy, unlike any the town had witnessed before. A palpable urgency surrounded them. The crowd swelled, and in that moment they forged a bond, a partnership built on mutual pain and hope. They began to share whispers of plans, strategies, maybe even dreams of freedom. The crowd turned, eyes widened in fear and anticipation, as the weight of the moment hung in the air. Heavy boots thudded against the asphalt. Officers swarmed the vehicle, their faces obscured by dark helmets, eyes like cold chips of ice. The figure that emerged next was not just any officer. It was Chief Sullivan, a familiar face and a chilling reminder of the town's history. His reputation for brutality had long overshadowed any efforts for peace. But today, he was different. There was a wild look in his eyes, a hint of something darker. "Stand down," he barked, his voice echoing like thunder. "This isn't your fight." He took a step forward, body tense, radiating authority. Mabel's heart raced. "This is our fight, Chief! We demand justice!" But as she spoke, a quiet murmur rose from the crowd. It wasn't just anger, it felt more like fear. A collective gasp gripped the assembly. Mabel followed the eyes of the spectators and felt her stomach drop. From the back of the crowd, a woman stepped out. She carried herself with an air of quiet strength, but the tremor in her hands betrayed her. Mabel squinted, recognition dawning. It was Lydia, an old friend turned source of gossip. They hadn't seen each other in years. But that wasn't what made Mabel's blood run cold. It was the fabric of Lydia's shirt, soaked in crimson. "Lydia? What happened?" Mabel's voice trembled, fear seeping in. Lydia met her gaze, a mix of anger and sorrow swirling in her eyes. "You don't know, Mabel! It's about more than what you think." Each word sliced like glass. "It's not just police brutality. It's deeper, darker." Gasps echoed through the crowd. The police presence shifted, anxious glances exchanged. "What do you mean?" Marcus stepped forward protectively, scanning the eyes of those around him. He felt the weight of the whole town on his shoulders. "Remember, Marcus, in those years you were gone, your mother may have had other fights. She was wrapped up in something dangerous." Lydia's voice dropped, the shock spreading like wildfire among the listeners. Mabel's heart raced. "What are you talking about, Lydia?" She could barely breathe, disbelief gripping her. "The community hasn't just suffered from the police. There's been money laundering, drugs, ties to the very people we're fighting against." Each revelation tore at the fabric of Mabel's world, shaking everything she thought was true. Suddenly, a fierce wind picked up, rustling the leaves overhead. The atmosphere shifted, tension bubbling up, faces blurred into uncertainty. What did this mean for Mabel and Marcus? How had Lydia known? Marcus turned to his mother, confusion storming in his chest. "Is this true? Mabel, did you—" Before she could respond, a heavy silence fell. The truth was a thunderclap, and the shadows of their past began to unfurl ominously like a dark cloud approaching. The grip of their shared struggle tightened. Could they really trust each other anymore? And then a shot rang out. The crowd gasped, panic erupting as the world spiraled into chaos. The crowd gasped, panic erupting as the world spiraled into chaos. Mabel's heart raced. She felt the ground shift beneath her. "What's happening?" she screamed, unsure if anyone could hear her over the rising tide of fear. Lydia stumbled back, clutching her blood-soaked shirt as if it could somehow absorb the horror of the moment. Marcus instinctively stepped between her and Mabel, eyes darting around, scanning for threats. The shot had rung out like thunder in a clear sky, each heartbeat pounding louder than the last. Confusion swirled. The atmosphere crackled with tension. Where did that come from? A collective shudder passed through the crowd, whispers turning into frantic cries. The police officers tightened their grip on their weapons, glancing quickly at one another. Chief Sullivan's face was a mask of fury and fear, and he shouted, "Get back! Clear the area!" Mabel held her breath, feeling the pulse of the crowd. Her vision blurred as she sought her son's reassuring gaze. "Marcus!" she called, her voice breaking. But as she turned, she saw him staring wide-eyed at Lydia, confusion etched on his face. "Livia, what did you mean? What else is going on?" Marcus's urgency cranked the tension higher. Before Lydia could reply, chaos erupted again. The tires of the SUV screeched wildly as another figure emerged from the vehicle, moving swiftly, almost like a phantom cloaked in black. The crowd parted, gasping in unison. It was another officer. But this one, he was not just any officer. It was Officer Cruz, the man Marcus had known from his childhood. A trusted friend once. Now, his expression was etched with something cold and distant. His hand rested on the grip of his weapon, and as he pushed through the crowd, terror seeped into the hearts of everyone present. "Marcus, stand down," Cruz shouted, but his voice was far from a command. It felt like a warning. The air thickened. Dread rolled like a fog. "What is this, Cruz? Why are you—" But Marcus's words cut off when he noticed something glinting in Cruz's other hand. A bundle of documents. The sun hit the papers, reflecting a truth he had never anticipated. With trembling hands, Cruz tossed the documents towards Marcus, who caught them instinctively. The wind rustled through the pages, revealing names, dates, and unsettling details about his own family. His breath hitched in his throat as he read the words. Heart-pounding, money trails, names of shadowy figures, and connections that spiraled back to Mabel herself. "Mabel? What the hell is this?" Marcus's face paled. "Did you know?" The crowd held its breath, eyes darting between mother and son. Mabel's hands trembled. Tears brimmed in her eyes. I never thought it went this far," she stammered, her voice cracking with disbelief and sorrow. "Secrets buried deep, bubbled to the surface, threatening to drown them all." "Cruz, what's this about?" Chief Sullivan's voice had dropped, shifting from authority to fear. The wind howled, sensing the shift in power. Suddenly, Cruz stepped closer to Mabel, his cold eyes betraying something unexpected. Was it sympathy? "You've always had the heart to fight for justice, Mabel. But this can't end well. You're in deeper than you realize." The crowd swelled with murmurings of disbelief. Friends turned to enemies with every word spoken. Mabel's world, so clear just moments ago, had transformed into a labyrinth of betrayal. "Mum, tell me this isn't true," Marcus whispered, the weight of the documents pressing down like lead. "Everything's been twisted," Mabel gasped. "I thought I was protecting you. I thought—" But before she could finish, another shot rang out. The world tilted and screams filled the air. The crowd erupted as chaos descended once more. In that split second, the truth fractured, leaving Marcus and Mabel standing on shifting ground, the bond they shared unraveling like threads in a fraying tapestry. Could they trust each other? Or had the very foundation of their love been built on lies? As chaos clawed at their heels, but darkness of hidden truths loomed larger than ever, and the line between ally and enemy grew thin. The world tilted on its axis. Another shot rang out, echoing in the chaos like a heartbeat gone wrong. Panic surged, people screamed, and the crowd erupted into frenzied motion. Mabel's heart raced as Marcus instinctively pulled her closer, hands shaking. "Stay behind me!" he shouted, but his voice barely cut through the frenzy. Everything felt unreal. The panic, the cries, the heart-stopping uncertainty. It crashed over them like waves. Mabel could barely breathe, her throat tight as she caught sight of Lydia, who stumbled backward with wide eyes, clutching her blood-soaked shirt. "I didn't mean to," Lydia gasped, the words choking her. Then, in the midst of the chaos, something shifted. A shadow moved among the crowd, weaving through the panicked bodies. It was another officer, but different, slimmer, quicker. A spectre against the chaos. Mabel squinted, trying to focus through her fear. Who was it? Suddenly, that figure lunged forward, deftly dodging the scattering crowd. The chaos froze in a beat as recognition flashed in Mabel's eyes. It was Angela, the very woman from the neighborhood watch, the one who always seemed to know everything, the woman who had looked out for Marcus when he was growing up. She was supposed to be their ally. "Angela, what are you doing?" Mabel called, her voice cutting against the noise. But Angela's expression wasn't what Mabel expected. There was no warmth there, just desperation mixed with a wild fury. She didn't even glance at Mabel as she drew something from her pocket, a small object that gleamed under the afternoon sun. "Get back!" Angela shouted, her voice piercing through the chaos. "This isn't just about the cops. They're trying to cover this up." Mabel's heart sank. "Cover what up? What do you mean?" But before Angela could respond, she whipped around, aiming that small object toward the police barricade. It was another gun, glinting dangerously bright. Gasps burst from the crowd. "Angela, no!" Mabel screamed, the fear spilling into her words. But Angela's eyes were wild, her voice shaking as she cried out, "You don't understand! They've been silencing us, silencing the truth." Anger twisted her face, and chaos erupted again. People shuffled backward in fear. "Stand down, Angela!" Chief Sullivan shouted, stepping forward, hands up. But it only added more fuel to the fire. In that charged moment, Mabel felt it. A visceral jolt! "Angela! You can't! You're not helping!" she shouted, stepping into the fray, trying to reach the woman who'd been like family. "Family!" Angela snapped, her eyes darting around, searching for something, someone. "You've been part of this lie. It's all connected. The police, the drugs, the money. It's all a web, and you're caught in it." Each word hit Mabel like a punch to the gut. "What are you saying?" she gasped. But Angela was already spiraling, unraveling a truth a Mabel wished she could reject. Without warning, a sudden explosion of sound filled the air. A bomb had gone off, sending debris flying, the earth trembling underfoot. Darkness smothered the square for a split second. Mabel barely had time to scream. When the dust settled, silence fell. People lay sprawled on the ground. Mabel felt a cold grip of dread as she searched for Marcus. Was he okay? The sharp smell of smoke choked her lungs. She spotted him, standing frozen, staring at something on the ground. There, amid the rubble, lay a body, a familiar face twisted in a grimace. It was Lydia. "No!" Mabel cried, rushing forward. But as she knelt beside the lifeless woman, a blood-chilling realization shot through her. The locket, engraved with the initials MJ, belonged to her. A cold dread washed over Mabel. What did this mean? Had Lydia known too much? And as she lifted her gaze to Marcus, confusion and anguish written across his face, Mabel suddenly felt an emptiness inside her. Everything she thought she understood lay crumbled around her. "Marcus," she whispered, barely able to hold back a tremor. "We need to talk. There's so much more." But just then, a harsh voice cut through the haze. "Whatever it is, it's too late." Mabel turned, and her heart dropped. In the smoke and chaos stood Chief Sullivan, a sinister smile spreading across his face. "You have no idea what you've set in motion." As the truth languished in the air, heavy like the smoke swirling lazily overhead, it became clear nothing would ever be the same. The shadows around Chief Sullivan loomed larger, a threat palpable in the air. Mabel's heart raced wildly, each beat echoing an unsettling truth. She glimpsed Marcus, the confusion etched into his features, and that familiar urge to protect swelled within her. She took a shaky breath, ready to speak, but a deafening roar cut through the tension. Before anyone could react, the ground rattled beneath them. The deafening sound of an approaching helicopter. It sliced through the chaos, creating an unexpected wind that tousled everyone's hair. The crowd quieted for a heartbeat, eyes glued to the sky. Mabel squinted up, dread pooling in her stomach as the massive black machine descended, its spotlight cutting through the bodies pushed against one another, fear rising like smoke. Suddenly, a loud bang echoed through the square and everyone froze. It wasn't just the helicopter. It was a flashbang, brilliant light, overwhelming noise. Mabel squeezed her eyes shut, feeling her heart pound like a drum. The world erupted into panic again. Screams piercing the bewildering days as people staggered back, their faces painted with fear. In that chaos, she felt someone grab her arm. "We need to go!" Marcus shouted, urgency in his voice. But she couldn't move. She felt like the ground had frozen around her. "I need to know what's happening!" she cried, desperate to connect the dots, her chest tightening with every second. "Mum," he pleaded, looking into her eyes, and for a moment, everything faltered. Then she spotted Sasha, an old friend who had stood by her side through thick and thin, rushing toward them. But as she got closer, horror bloomed in Mabel's chest. The locket was around Sasha's neck, hanging from her. "Sasha!" Mabel gasped, realizing the connection in that instant. The ties that bound their community turned dark, back to a hidden past she thought she could outlive. Sasha's eyes widened, a mixture of pain and recognition. "Lydia, she was trying to tell you, before it was too late." Panic twisted her voice. "It all leads back to your family." The weight of the words crashed over Mabel like icy water. "My family? What do you mean?" Before Sasha could explain, Chief Sullivan let out a booming laugh, the kind that chilled to the bone. "You really should have kept your mouth shut, Mabel. Secrets tend to come back to haunt those who think they're safe." Suddenly the ground shifted. A wave of officers surged forward, encircling them. In the frenzy, Mabel caught sight of movement from the helicopter. A figure dropped down, landing gracefully just beyond the chaos. Gasps thundered through the crowd. It was a woman, striking and fierce, clad in tactical gear. Her face was stern, eyes focused. But as she approached the light, Mabel felt an odd familiarity. "Stand down!" the woman commanded, voice cutting through the noise like a scalpel. "You don't know the half of it." Marcus stepped forward, protectively yet hesitantly. "Who are you?" "Mabel," the woman said, locking eyes with her. "I'm your sister." The crowd fell silent, shock rippling like a wave. "No! That's impossible!" Mabel gasped, her breath hitching in her throat. "No, it's true," the sister continued, and suddenly everything felt raw. "I had to protect you from the truth, from our father." Mabel's heart thundered, the crumbling pieces of her world suffocating her. "What are you saying? Everything you fought for, everything within this town's shadows, all of it ties back to our family. The money, the pain. It was never just the police," she revealed, steady, yet trembling. Before Mabel could process the weight of the revelation, another gunshot rang out. The crowd erupted anew, chaos spiraling once more. But Mabel's world froze in that moment. Her sister, a ghost from the past, stood before her, and the enormity of the truth struck harder than anything else. Would they unite against the real enemy, or had the truth torn them apart forever? Mabel felt the fabric of her reality unravel, and only one question pierced the storm. Could she ever truly trust anyone again? The shadows around Chief Sullivan loomed larger, a threat palpable in the air. Mabel's heart raced wildly, each beat echoing an unsettling truth. She glimpsed Marcus. The confusion etched into his features, and that familiar urge to protect swelled within her. She took a shaky breath, ready to speak, but a deafening roar cut through the tension. Before anyone could react, the ground rattled beneath them. The deafening sound of an approaching helicopter. It sliced through the chaos, creating an unexpected wind that tousled everyone's hair. The crowd quieted for a heartbeat, eyes glued to the sky. Mabel squinted up, dread pooling in her stomach as the massive black machine descended, its spotlight cutting through the haze like a knife. "Move!" shouted an officer, barking orders. Bodies pushed against one another, fear rising like smoke. Suddenly, A loud bang echoed through the square, and everyone froze. It wasn't just the helicopter. It was a flashbang. Brilliant light. Overwhelming noise. Mabel squeezed her eyes shut, feeling her heart pound like a drum. The world erupted into panic again. Screams piercing the bewildering days as people staggered back, their faces painted with fear. In that chaos, she felt someone grab her arm. "We need to go!" Marcus shouted, urgency in his voice. But she couldn't move. She felt like the ground had frozen around her. "I need to know what's happening!" she cried, desperate to connect the dots, her chest tightening with every second. "Mom!" he pleaded, looking into her eyes. And for a moment, everything faltered. Then she spotted Sasha, an old friend who had stood by her side through thick and thin, rushing toward them. But as she got closer, horror bloomed in Mabel's chest. The locket was around Sasha's neck, hanging from her. "Sasha!" Mabel gasped, realizing the connection in that instant. The ties that bound their community turned dark, back to a hidden past she thought she could outlive. Sasha's eyes widened, a mixture of pain and recognition. "Lydia, she was trying to tell you before it was too late." Panic twisted her voice. "It all leads back to your family." The weight of the words crashed over Mabel like icy water. "My family? What do you mean?" But before Sasha could explain, Chief Sullivan let out a booming laugh, the kind that chilled to the bone. "You really should have kept your mouth shut, Mabel. Secrets tends to come back to haunt those who think they're safe." Suddenly, the ground shifted. A wave of officers surged forward, encircling them. In the frenzy, Mabel caught sight of movement from the helicopter. A figure dropped down, landing gracefully just beyond the chaos. Gasps thundered through the crowd. It was a woman, striking and fierce, clad in tactical gear. Her face was stern, eyes focused. But as she approached the light, Mabel felt an odd familiarity. "Stand down!" the woman commanded, voice cutting through the noise like a scalpel. "You don't know the half of it." Marcus stepped forward, protectively yet hesitantly. "Who are you?" "Mabel," the woman said, locking eyes with her. "I'm your sister." The crowd fell silent, shock rippling like a wave. "No, that's impossible!" Mabel gasped, her breath hitching in her throat. "No, it's true," the sister continued, and suddenly everything felt raw. "I had to protect you from the truth. From our father." Mabel's heart thundered, the crumbling pieces of her world suffocating her. "What are you saying?" "Everything you fought for, everything within this town's shadows, all of it ties back to our family. The money, the pain. It was never just the police," she revealed, steady yet trembling. Before Mabel could process the weight of the revelation, another gunshot rang out. The crowd erupted anew, chaos spiraling once more. But Mabel's world froze in that moment. Her sister, a ghost from the past, stood before her, and the enormity of the truth struck harder than anything else. Would they unite against the real enemy? Or had the truth torn them apart forever? Her heart stopped as she heard a familiar voice, warped with pain. "Mum, you promised." It was Marcus, eyes wide with betrayal. But before Mabel could reach out, she felt the ground shake again. Something larger loomed, almost like a tremor. Footsteps thundered past them. And as the dust began to settle, Mabel realized it was a group of protesters rushing toward the square, fists raised, demanding justice. But their chants shifted as one voice rang louder over the chaos, a voice Mabel hadn't heard in over 2 decades. "Let's finish what we started." Mabel's blood ran cold. It was her father, alive after all these years. The man she fought had disappeared, swallowed by the shadows he once commanded. As realization shattered the moment, the crowd's tension surged into an overwhelming cacophony. The truth was unraveling like a tapestry caught in a storm. "Dad?" Mabel whispered, the world spinning around her. The air shifted, carrying a weight of secrets that threatened to consume them all. Marcus turned to her, confusion drawn tight across his features. "What do you mean? What's happening?" But before she could reply, Mabel felt a cold grip of dread. For all this time, everything had been entwined, including her ties to the dark legacy of her family. And then, just as chaos threatened to swallow them whole, Mabel felt something sharp jab into her side. Something familiar. Familiar enough to know. Had she been marked too? As everything spiraled into panic, one question echoed in her mind. Were they all just pawns in a game they never truly understood? The shadows around Chief Sullivan loomed larger, a threat palpable in the air. Mabel's heart raced wildly, each beat echoing an unsettling truth. She glimpsed Marcus, the confusion etched into his features, and that familiar urge to protect swelled within her. She took a shaky breath, ready to speak. But a deafening roar cut through the tension. Before anyone could react, the ground rattled beneath them, the deafening sound of an approaching helicopter. It sliced through the chaos, creating an unexpected wind that tousled everyone's hair. The crowd quieted for a heartbeat, eyes glued to the sky. Mabel squinted up, dread pooling in her stomach as the massive black machine descended, its spotlight cutting through the haze like a knife. "Move!" shouted an officer, barking orders. Bodies pushed again. Suddenly, a loud bang echoed through the square, and everyone froze. It wasn't just the helicopter. It was a flashbang. Brilliant light, overwhelming noise. Mabel squeezed her eyes shut, feeling her heart pound like a drum. The world erupted into panic again, screams piercing the bewildering daze as people staggered back, their faces painted with fear. In that chaos, she felt someone, grab her arm. "We need to go!" Marcus shouted, urgency in his voice. But she couldn't move. She felt like the ground had frozen around her. "I need to know what's happening!" she cried, desperate to connect the dots, her chest tightening with every second. "Mom!" he pleaded, looking into her eyes, and for a moment everything faltered. Then she spotted Sasha, an old friend who had stood by her side through thick and thin, rushing toward them. But as she got closer, horror bloomed in Mabel's chest. The locket was around Sasha's neck, hanging from her. "Sasha!" Mabel gasped, realizing the connection in that instant. The ties that bound their community turned dark, back to a hidden past she thought she could outlive. Sasha's eyes widened, a mixture of pain and recognition. "Lydia, she was trying to tell you. Before it was too late. Panic twisted her voice. It all leads back to your family. The weight of the words crashed over Mabel like icy water. My family? What do you mean? But before Sasha could explain, Chief Sullivan let out a booming laugh. The kind that chilled to the bone. You really should have kept your mouth shut, Mabel. Secrets tend to come back to haunt those who think they're safe. Suddenly, the ground shifted. A wave of officers surged forward, encircling them. In the frenzy, Mabel caught sight of movement from the helicopter. A figure dropped down, landing gracefully just beyond the chaos. Gasps thundered through the crowd. It was a woman, striking and fierce, clad in tactical gear. Her face was stern, eyes focused, but as she approached the light, Mabel felt an odd familiarity. "Stand down!" the woman commanded, voice cutting through the noise like a scalpel. "You don't know the half of it." Marcus stepped forward protectively yet hesitantly. "Who are you?" "Mabel," the woman said, locking eyes with her. "I'm your sister." The crowd fell silent, shock rippling like a wave. "No, that's impossible," Mabel gasped, her breath hitching in her throat. "No, it's true," the sister continued, and suddenly everything felt raw. "I had to protect you from the truth, from our father." Mabel's heart thundered, the crumbling pieces of her world suffocating her. "What are you saying?" "Everything you fought for, everything within this town's shadows, all of it ties back to our family, the money, the pain. It was never just the police," she revealed, steady yet trembling. Before Mabel could process the weight of the revelation, another gunshot rang out. The crowd erupted anew, chaos spiraling once more. But Mabel's world froze in that moment. Her sister, a ghost from the past, stood before her, and the enormity of the truth struck harder than anything else. Would they unite against the real enemy? Or had the truth torn them apart forever? As Marcus's face morphed from shock to horror to anger, something shifted in the air. Mabel felt a sudden sharp pain at her side. Wasn't just a scratch. It felt like a brand, searing her skin with a fire that ignited something primal within her. "What the hell?" she gasped, staggering back. "Something's wrong." But her sister's face went pale, eyes widening with realization. "No, it can't be! Mabel, you've been marked!" The crowd gasped, whispering, fear mingling with confusion. "What does that mean?" Marcus shouted, panic tightening his voice. "Mabel, it's a consequence, a debt you don't even know you owe," the woman explained, trembling. "You have no idea who you're truly connected to." Suddenly, Mabel felt another surge of pain and dropped to her knees. The voices around her faded into a blur as visions flooded her mind. Images of an underground world filled with crime, betrayal, and ties she never understood. "Mom!" Marcus's voice cracked through the haze. "Fight it!" But Mabel was slipping, pulled into a reality where everything she knew and loved began to shift beneath her. An overwhelming sense of clarity surged through her, revealing dark secrets tangled in her past, ones her family had concealed. How deep did the darkness run? Through gritted teeth, she fought to grasp reality. And just as she felt she was about to break through, the sky above them cracked, a blinding light expanding, enveloping the square and everything in it. Then silence. And in that eerie stillness, each heart waited, breaths caught, anticipating the next. The shadows held their breath. The blinding light above faded into sharp fingers of darkness, pulling reality behind it. Mabel dropped to her knees, feeling her heart pound against her ribs like thunder. Silence engulfed the square. A heavy blanket smothering the chaos as confusion rippled through the crowd. Then the air crackled. Something shifted. From the darkness, a voice emerged. Cold, calm. What a mess you've made, Mabel. Mabel looked up, squinting through the dimming light. A figure stepped forward, silhouetted against the fading glow. Father? She felt disbelief wash over her. How could he be here? How had he survived all those years? The crowd gasped. Marcus staggered back, his face twisted in horror. "No! This can't be happening!" he shouted, disbelief spilling from his lips. People turned, fear flashing in their eyes, uncertainty palpable. "Dad, what do you want?" Mabel's voice shook. "You disappeared! You left us!" "Oh, I didn't leave you. I was working, keeping my family alive," he replied with a smirk, stepping further into the fading light. His eyes glinted, full of triumph. "To protect you all from what lurked in the shadows." Mabel felt the ground shift beneath her, as though shaking loose the very foundation of her existence. "Protect? You think you protected us?" Marcus stepped in front of her, a barrier of defiance. "You don't belong here. You're not welcome." But their father merely laughed, a chilling sound that sent shivers through the crowd. "Welcome? Do you think any of this is about welcome? This," he gestured around, "is just the beginning." Then, as if summoned by his words, a series of explosions erupted into the night sky, exploding in vibrant colors and deafening booms. Fire lit the shadows, illuminating the faces of onlookers filled with panic. Mabel covered her ears, heart racing as jarring light blinded her. That wasn't fireworks, it was chaos. "Run!" someone shouted, the word rippling through the crowd like wildfire. The mass surged forward, bodies crashing against one another in blind fear. Mabel felt Marcus grip her arm tight, pulling her towards safety. But just then, another figure stepped from the shadows. A woman, fierce and determined, her defiance palpable. "Stop!" she shouted, her voice cutting like a knife through the cacophony. "You need to hear this." Mabel blinked through the chaos, recognizing the face. "Angela?" "Yes! Now you understand." Angela's voice strained, but her conviction shone through. This whole thing was a setup. "Mabel, your father, he knew this would happen." Her father's gaze narrowed. "You don't know what you're saying, girl. Don't listen to her." But it was too late. The crowd paused, drawn in by the weight of Angela's voice. "You're not just their father, Mabel. You're the one they're controlling. You were bred into this. They have a hold on you, and they're using you as leverage." Mabel felt the world tilt sharply. Angela's words crashed like waves, breaking everything she thought she knew. "What are you talking about?" Mabel gasped, breath catching in her throat. "They need your bloodline to fuel their power. You're part of something much bigger than you realize." The crowd murmured, confusion overshadowing fear. As Mabel's heart raced, her father stepped closer, his eyes narrowing. "Shut her up!" But Mabel stood rooted, feeling the weight of the truth crashing around her like a storm. "You're lying!" she shouted, desperate for clarity. "Am I?" Angela responded, voice strong. "You sense it, don't you? The mark, the calls for you, they're drawing you back into a world of shadows." Suddenly, the ground rumbled again. A bright light illuminated the square, burning through the darkness. In that moment, Mabel understood. The truth was unraveling, and with it, everything she thought she knew shattered like glass. Then the sky burst open, not with sound, but revelations. You weren't just a daughter, Mabel. You were chosen. And with that, the truth hung heavy in the air, leaving everything and everyone uncertain. The world abruptly tilted. Mabel's heart raced, pounding against her chest. She'd fallen to her knees, gasping for breath, the crushing reality of her father's presence pushing down on her like a heavy weight. Her sister stood in the shadows, eyes wide with fear. Suddenly, a flash, a blinding light filled the square, swirling around them. And then, silence! It wasn't just the kind of silence that follows an explosion. It was a deep, suffocating quiet that hung in the air, thick with anticipation. The crowd froze. No one dared to move. Mabel strained to focus. What was happening? She looked to Marcus, his gaze fixed on their father, confusion and horror masking his features. "Stand back!" Chief Sullivan shouted, but his authority felt hollow. The address of power became meaningless against the backdrop of uncertainty. A hush wrapped around them like a fog, and then it came, a low rumble, almost like a growl, shaking the ground beneath her. The crowd murmured nervously, and just as suddenly as the silence enveloped them, a figure emerged, seemingly out of thin air. A woman, tall and poised, wearing a military uniform that glinted in the fading light. Mabel squinted, recognizing the woman instantly. It was her old friend Ava, a face from her past she hadn't seen since her childhood. The memories flooded back, adventures in the neighborhood, laughter that echoed through warm summers. "Ava, what are you doing here?" Mabel barely whispered, the comfort of nostalgia clashing with the chaos surrounding them. Ava's eyes were fierce, but they softened upon meeting Mabel's gaze. "I'm here to help, but you need to trust me." Before Mabel could respond, Ava pulled something from her pocket. A small silver device. "This can stop him!" she shouted, pointing at their father. The words hung in the air, dripping with everything Mabel felt, but couldn't say. Everything she'd believed shattered. But just then, a piercing scream cut through the murmur of the crowd. It erupted from the back. Lydia! The old friend who'd warned her just moments before, but the sound was filled with raw terror. Mabel turned, straining to see. Panic pulsed through the crowd as people inched back, eyes wide with terror. Lydia was clutching her stomach, blood seeping through her hands, her face pale as a ghost. "No, it can't be," she gasped, collapsing to the ground. Time stopped. As the crowd surged forward, Mabel felt a cold sweat trickle down her spine. This was chaos turned to nightmare. In that moment, Ava lunged forward, dropping to her knees beside Lydia. "Stay with me, Lydia," she shouted, her voice laced with desperation. But the flicker in Lydia's eyes dimmed, the life fleeing right before Mabel's gaze. Anguish erupted in Mabel. "What happened?" she cried, emotions boiling over. As Ava hurried to apply pressure, she shot a look at Mabel, eyes blazing. This wasn't just a fight. They planned this. The darkness is deeper. Then the sound of crackling emerged from the device in Ava's hand, snapping everyone's focus. "Mabel, you need to activate it! You're the only one who could break this cycle!" The weight of her father's laughter filled the air. "You're all fools. You think you can fight the shadows? You're part of them!" Something shifted in Mabel at that moment. A spark ignited deep inside her. She leaped to her feet, firm resolve pushing past the fear. She wouldn't be another pawn, not anymore. But then the unexpected happened. Ava stepped back, her hands raised. "It's too late." Before she could finish, the device exploded into a brilliant light, engulfing Mabel in warmth. She felt a surge of power coursing through her, almost like a heartbeat syncing with her own. "What's happening?" Mabel shouted, panic clawing at her throat as the brilliance wrapped around her. In that blinding moment, she glimpsed visions of family, betrayal, and pain stitched into the very fabric of her existence. They weren't just shadows. They were memories. Realizations came flooding in. Her heart raced. What was real? Then, right before her, the truth punched through the haze. "Mum, you used it!" Marcus's voice shattered the spell. But it wasn't anger. It was awe. She could feel the gasp ripple through the crowd. A chilling laugh erupted from her father, shaking Mabel to her core. "Ah, my dear daughter has awakened. But you've chosen the wrong side." The ground trembled again, unsettling the very universe. With a flip of his wrist, the shadows seemed to consume everything. Mabel's vision jerked, the light fading. She lunged forward, desperation filling her. "Stop!" But it was too late. Everything went black, leaving the question hanging in the air. What had she unleashed? And what darkness awaited them all? The uncertainty tightened around her like a noose, leaving nothing but dread in its wake. In the blinding flash, Mabel stumbled, feeling the power flicker around her. Her father's laughter twisted through the chaos, angry and mocking. "You think you can stop me?" he shouted, the tension in the air electric. Mabel's heart raced, pounding like a drum in her chest. The weight of her family history pressed down on her, heavy and suffocating. "Enough!" Ava shouted, stepping forward. "We're not scared of you anymore!" Her voice rang out, defiant. Mabel felt a surge of courage. She was not alone. Marcus gripped her shoulder tight, eyes locked onto hers. "Mom, we can fight this together!" Mabel took a deep breath, the fiery determination rising in her. "You may have tried to control my life, but not anymore," she declared, her voice strong and unwavering. she fully activated the device Ava had given her. A wave of light erupted, illuminating the square, casting away the darkness like a dawn breaking through a long night. The shadows writhed, flickering against the brightness, howling as they recoiled from the power flowing through her. Mabel felt the memories swirling, darkness clawing at her, but she pushed it back, channeling all her love for her son, her community, and even for the sister she never truly knew. "No more!" she shouted, the sound vibrating through her very being. The crowd stood agape, spellbound, watching as the figures that embodied fear began to dissolve. Chief Sullivan's face twisted in horror, and her father stumbled back, fury painting his features. "You'll regret this!" he bellowed helplessly, as the shadows around him seemed to fracture, splintering away into nothing. Mabel looked around, seeing "We're stronger together." Just at that moment, the helicopter's drone faded into the background, its light dimming as the chaos began to settle. The crowd stirred, murmuring, the tension lifting like the morning mist. And then Lydia, bloodied but alive, began to rise, completed from the ground. "We stand for truth!" she cried, her voice gaining strength. The crowd shifted, a wave of agreement rolling through. "Justice is ours!" Mabel smiled at Marcus, relief flooding her with a warmth unlike anything she'd ever felt. They had fought their way through the darkness, but still, as they faced the sunlight cutting through the chaos, uncertainty lingered. Had they truly unraveled the shadows, or merely put a bandage over a deeper wound? Mabel glanced back at her father. The corners of his mouth twitched, uncertainty creeping into his gaze. "Remember this, Mabel," he spat, a cold glint still in his eye. "It's not over." As the crowd began to disperse quietly, Mabel turned to her sister, longing unspoken between them. "Can we ever truly escape this?" she asked softly, needing an answer. Her sister looked back, eyes sincere. "Together, we will find out." And with that, Mabel felt something stirring inside her. Hope, perhaps? But the shadows remained, lurking just outside the light. "Come on, let's go home," Marcus said, wrapping an arm around her shoulders tightly. "We'll face it together." The shadow still haunted her thoughts, and as they walked away, fear mixed with anticipation thrummed through the air. What awaited them in the future? Would they truly be free from the shadows of their past? The questions lingered, unfurling like smoke in the evening light. Now, before you go, this is the moment to show your support. You need to subscribe immediately to the channel so you don't miss the next exclusive stories. Smash that like button now. Every click feeds the algorithm. Flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about this ending. What did you think? What happens next? And don't wait another second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to know this outcome. Only true fans understand the importance of supporting the channel with these actions. Let's keep this community thriving!